Now, to price cakes is a tricky topic because it feels so personal, coming up with a number that we feel represents our time and effort. But it's important to take the time to price your cakes accurately to make sure you're not losing money. In this tutorial, I'll walk you through 4 steps to calculate your cake prices. The first step when you think about how to price cakes is to calculate your direct costs. These are the costs of whatever you're selling. The ingredients of your cake, filling, frosting, any garnishes, and also any packaging materials. For the ingredients, refer to your recipes and take out each ingredient, and you'll also need receipts showing the cost of each ingredient. Or you can look them up online if your supermarket or grocery store has their prices online. This is a bit time-consuming for your first recipe, but gets much quicker after that. There are 3 ways to work out the cost of each ingredient, and I'll show you how to do it for ingredients measured in grams and also in cups, and in units, for example, eggs. First, in units or items, for example, eggs. Find the cost of the carton of eggs that you buy and divide that cost by the number of eggs in that carton. That's the cost of 1 egg. If your recipe says 2 eggs, just multiply the cost of 1 egg by 2. Write down that cost on a piece of paper, or I'll show you how to make a spreadsheet in a minute, which will make this process really fast for all of your other recipes. For any ingredients in your recipe that are measured in grams, check the packaging to see how many grams are in that package and write that down. Then look at your recipe and see how many grams you need and write that down. Divide the total weight by the weight that you need and write down that number too and circle it. Now write down the cost of the whole package and divide that by the number you circled. This is the cost of the amount of ingredient you need for your recipe. For any ingredient measured in cups or tablespoons or teaspoons, look at the nutritional label. Look at what the serving size is and how many servings are in the package. If the serving size is 1/4 of a cup and there are 75 servings in the bag, that means the bag has 75 1/4 cups in it. So dividing by 4 to get the full cups, there are 18 3/4 cups of flour in this bag. If the bag of flour costs $5, each cup of flour is going to cost 5 divided by 18 3/4, which is 26 cents. If your recipe uses 2 cups of flour, that will cost you 26 times 2, which is 52 cents. Repeat that process for all of your ingredients. You might be shocked to see how much your ingredients cost per cake. Perhaps just the ingredients add up to more than the price of a huge sheet cake at a grocery store or supermarket, and we'll talk about why that's important in a minute. If you use a spreadsheet to calculate your costs instead of just writing them down, you can calculate the cost of all of your recipes in minutes. If spreadsheets give you anxiety, skip ahead in this video to 5 minutes. To make a cost spreadsheet, start with the ingredients in one column and the price in the next. Make sure you don't include any currency symbols in the same cell as the price. So put dollars or pounds or whatever currency in a different column, and then write your prices out just using numbers. In the next column, type the total size of the package. This could be 12 for a carton of eggs, or 4,530 for a 4.53 kilogram bag if you're using grams to measure your ingredients. In the next column, calculate the cost of one of that ingredient. 1 gram or 1 ounce or 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon or 1 egg. Use whatever measurement your recipe uses for that ingredient. It doesn't have to be the same for all of the ingredients on your list. To calculate this, type equals and then click on the price. Then press the slash for divided by and click on however many grams, ounces, teaspoons, tablespoons or items are in the package. And press enter or return. Do this for all of your ingredients, and I have a template for this spreadsheet with all of the formulas already inputted, which I'll share in a second. Now in the next column, type however many units you need for your recipe. 600 grams of sugar, 3.3 cups of flour, but don't include measurements like grams or tablespoons in the same column. Use a different column. Now in the last column, calculate the cost of the ingredient in your recipe. Type equals the cost of 1 unit, and then multiply with Shift 8, and then click on the amount you need for your recipe, and then press enter or return. Voila! After you've done this for all of the ingredients in your recipe, go to the bottom of the list of ingredients and all the way to the final column, and underneath it, type equals sum, then a bracket or parentheses, and then click on the top cost and drag all the way down to the bottom one to highlight all of the costs for that recipe. And then press enter or return, and that's the total cost of all of the ingredients to make that recipe. I've put the link to my spreadsheet in the top of the screen and in the video description, which you can download and fill in using your own ingredient prices and recipes. The other direct costs to include are the cost of a cake board, the cake box, and any other packaging supplies too. I'll talk about custom cakes and deliveries in a moment. You might be thinking there are a lot more costs to making a cake, and you're right. Those are coming up next, starting with indirect costs. Indirect costs are the things that aren't going to be boxed up and given to your customer, but still play a part in making it possible to make your cake. For example, gas or electricity for your oven, and a cake fridge if you have one, your rent if you rent a space for baking or selling your cakes, driving to buy your baking supplies, and buying a bigger mixer to make your cakes. We'll come back to the mixer and any other investments you make to be able to make your cakes. For all of the other indirect costs that are necessary to make your cakes, make a list of them and also how much each one costs per month. Then work out how many cakes you sell each month, which could be an average of how many cakes you sold in the last 6 months. Now it's time to spread out your indirect costs between your cakes so that you include them in your prices. For example, if you need to drive to Costco once a month to buy your baking supplies, and you estimate that the fuel for your car is going to cost $5, and you make 5 cakes a month, that's a $1 cost added to each cake you make. If your gas or electricity or water costs are $20 higher on the months you make cakes, and again, let's say you make 5 cakes a month, that's $20 divided by 5, which is a $4 cost added to each cake. This sounds trivial because the numbers are so small, but everything adds up. For investments, like a bigger mixer, first think about how long you're planning on using it for. If it's 5 years, divide the cost of the mixer by 5 years, and then divide that number by 12 to calculate the cost of 1 month. Divide that by however many cakes you sell in a month. Now you've spread out the cost of that mixer between every cake you sell for the next 5 years, approximately at least. The next thing to include when you price your cakes is the cost of your time. And you might be thinking that you don't need to charge for your time because you enjoy making cakes, or you're at home anyway. But if you weren't making a cake for someone else, you could be doing anything else you wanted to do that day. So when you're dedicating time to making a specific cake for someone else, you need to include that time as a cost of that cake. You might start by charging the minimum wage in your area, say $10 an hour. And if you figure out that the baking and frosting and decorating will take you 4 hours, you'll add $40 to the price of your cake. But as time goes on and your skills improve, you might increase your hourly rate. And with that, you'll increase the price of your cakes. Before moving on to the final part of the price, the profit, let's talk about how to price custom cakes and deliveries. Custom cakes are a little bit different only because you have to consider the additional cost and time of any custom details of that cake. If someone wants a particular cake topper that you'll have to order and pay for shipping too, that's a direct cost, which should be included in your price. If someone wants a layered stencil design that you'll have to chill in between each color, and the design has 10 colors, estimate how much time that custom design will take and multiply that by your hourly rate. When I had a cake shop, I had set prices for simple decorations, more elaborate decorations, and very elaborate decorations, based on how much time I thought the decorations would take me to make, which saved me a lot of time pricing out the decorations individually for each cake order. I would add on the cost of any special materials, like an icing sheet, for example. It was a quick way of doing it, but I've also worked at bakeries where they have set prices for every single detail. For example, they charged for each color used on a cake, and for the percentage of the surface area of the cake that would be covered with decorations. And they had different prices for a beaded border compared to a ribbon border. Charging for each detail added to a cake will give you the most consistent and accurate pricing. But it's also very time-consuming to prepare a cake quote with that method, especially if the customer wants quotes for a few different designs. Back to my comment earlier about cakes from supermarkets or grocery stores. A custom cake is obviously very different because the ingredients are better quality, and the style of decorations is very different and much more personalized. So don't panic when you see that your costs are going way beyond the price of one of those cakes. You're making and selling something completely different, and the price will reflect that. People know, or should know, that the price of a cake will be a lot higher when it's a custom cake that's homemade, or from a small business, or from a high-end bakery. For deliveries, you'll need to incorporate your costs, which are your gas or petrol, and the wear and tear on your car if you want to calculate an estimate of that. If you're in the US, there's a standard mileage cost for employees to cover both of these. Then you'll need to include your time, which is your hourly rate multiplied by your estimate of how long the delivery will take, including setup if necessary. The final thing to add to your price is profit. Your price so far covers the costs of making a cake, the direct costs, indirect costs, and labor, but adding on a percentage of profit is essential to be able to grow your cake business, so that you can invest in new tools, any training or courses you'd like to take, marketing like social media posts, hiring someone to help you, and maybe saving up to rent a commercial kitchen or a storefront. It sounds like a great idea, but how do you know how much profit you should make on each cake? This might be somewhere between 20 and 40%, depending on your experience and your location. And this is where your competition comes into play. It's a good idea to look around and see what your competitors are charging, how much similar cakes cost in your area. Obviously, a supermarket or grocery store cake isn't going to be the same price as a custom cake, and a buttercream cake probably isn't going to be the same price as a fondant cake. And a cake in New York City or Los Angeles is probably going to be more expensive than the same cake in a small town, because costs in those cities are so much higher. So look around to find local cakes that really are similar to yours and compare your prices to those. Then see what percentage you can add to your prices to be similar to those. Okay, here come the mathematics. If you've already set your prices, you can calculate what your current profit margin is by using the costs you've already calculated and the prices you've already set. Your profit is the price minus your costs divided by your price times 100 to make it a percentage. So if your cake price is $50 and it costs you $40 to make that cake, your profit is 50 minus 40, which is 10, divided by your price, $50, which is 0.2, times 100 to make a percentage, 20% profit. To do this the other way around, if you know your costs are $40 and you want to make a 20% profit, flip the formula around to do the opposite. Start with your desired profit and divide by 100, so 20% divided by 100, 0.2. Take that away from 1, which for this example is 0.8. Then take your costs, $40 for this example, and divide by 0.8 to get the price you should charge, $50, which will give you a 20% profit. I really hope this has been helpful. I think the key points to remember when you're pricing your cakes are, firstly, to know your value. You're not making 1,000 generic cakes in bulk each day using cheap ingredients. You're making good quality, personalized or custom cakes. And you can charge a lot more for that. If you don't calculate your direct and indirect costs, and if you don't include your time, you're losing money when you sell cakes. And if you don't include a profit margin in your prices, you won't be able to save money to invest to grow your business or to cover unexpected costs along the way. Please use the comments section to ask me any questions about this, or tell me about your cake business, a success, a struggle, or what stage you're at. And if you want to improve your cake decorating skills, visit my cake school on BritishGirlBakes.com to learn hundreds of cake decorating techniques and designs.